Okay. We can start with updates from the Google team working on OpenMatch. I'm going to start with we're looking at hopefully getting 0.9 out sometime next week. We plan on skipping RCs until we're at 1.0, just because we haven't been getting much feedback from RCs. So we're just going to save ourselves the trouble of doing some cuts and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, 0.9 does have a bunch of API changes. However, we are trying to get everything in that we think we ever want to make to the existing API. And we want to kind of lock it down so that as we're looking at going towards 1.0, hopefully 0.9 will be like the API was done. And then 0.10 or so will be like the configuration is locked down and we're not going to be changing how you configure on you and that kind of stuff. That's the general plan, still subject to change until we hit 1.0, but, and, after if we want to do the Python thing, but, hopefully with 0.9, we'll be locking it down. I can give some of the highlights here. Chrome tab. Issues here. Okay. Hopefully that's presenting to everyone. So, let's see here. This one of them. Trying to look for everything. So we are changing fetch matches to only return or only take one profile and one match function run. This kind of simplifies things down, we think. And your director or whatever is calling fetch matches now has the opportunity to, when you're not sending all the profiles on one fetch matches call, you'll be hitting different backends. So that's hopefully gonna spread the work out more. We moved where the ignore list TTL lived in the config. This is not finalized, but we are adding a status to fetch matches because some other changes with Synchronizer I'll talk about a little bit later have enabled the fact that your batch function may fail but have returned some results. And so we're going to make sure we get those results to you. And then at the end, there's going to be some sort of like summary message that comes along after all the matches have been received that will say like, this is the status of running your match function. These are how many matches it made and how many passed evaluation and that kind of stuff. So that will be coming hopefully within 0.9 timeframe. We're not moving the sign tickets, so I need to rename this issue, but we are renaming mmLogic to Query and the gRPC like service to Query service. So finally, that will actually make sense. That's another bad name. We're removing the error from status or from assignment. So if you want that behavior, you can use an extension, but we decided it doesn't really make sense as being a first-class citizen of assignment. So some performance moves we'll get back to. And then the evaluators can only return match IDs, I think is the last big one here. So you don't have to return the whole match function or the whole match objects. And that will hopefully be both a performance improvement and just easier on the code. And because we've given you the match, so we know like the ID to match relationship, can just return the ID and we'll know which one to return to fetch matches call.
Interesting note. Sorry to break this up a little bit,
Oh,
but
yeah,
interesting note on that one. If there's anyone who have a particular scenario for why they would want to add additional data, extension, or context from their evaluator, that is something that we could definitely use some purview into. This move was definitely a simplification of something that was kind of like you could do anything, and it didn't make a lot of sense to expose the ability to do just anything. So if anyone has a particular use case for an evaluator, being able to extend the results of individual proposals for matches, definitely something that would be cool to hear about.
Yes. Yeah. Definitely. This is something we think fits all the models safely. But if it doesn't, please let us know, because again, we want to lock it down for 0.9. So we can always add stuff back later, but we want to avoid making the API kludgy. That's, I think, it for the API changes. The other big change, check issues here, or commits, is done a bunch of stuff with iterating, hopefully making OpenMatch better. The big change in code has been the synchronizer has been rewritten. This is the piece that collects all the matches and calls the evaluator. And it's been rewritten to both do more in-process streaming. So instead of waiting for the whole world to be done and then passing along to the evaluator, it passes matches on to the evaluator as it can. And then as the evaluator will return results, it will pass those back to the fetch matches call as it can. So there's less blocking and it's more of a flow. And hopefully that will get some performance improvements. And then the big change there is now the synchronizer does not wait until the proposal window is over if if all the match functions have returned. So this means you can set your proposal collection window to something like 20 seconds or more, just like to catch timeouts if your match functions have got caught in an infinite loop or something or timed out. And once your match function is finished, they'll keep going and act how you kind of expect it to act. We're still finalizing that, and I'll get to a little bit more skill tests, but that is hopefully a nice quality of life change as well.
Question for you, Scott. Do these improvements include the streaming modifications to match functions where you can cancel the synchronizer can effectively cancel a match function that's in flight? That's a really cool thing. One thing that we see a lot with match function development, especially during the evaluation phase when trying to figure out how to use OpenMatch effectively, getting context into when you've missed the window from the match function is like really, really nice, because you have a chance to kind of like, oh, I should stop doing work because it's not going to get used by anything. I feel like that's missing, because I definitely see some like 10 to 12 second match function runs where they're, like we've written one where we try to like boil the ocean, and it making it faster and smaller has definitely, we don't know when we miss it, right? And so now we have a chance to actually know when we miss it.
Yeah, to explain a little bit more, the synchronizer will actually tell all of the registered NAT functions that haven't finished that, hey, you need, like, the synchronizing window is closed. I'm going to ignore all the matches you give me at this point anyways, so you should just cancel the call. And so if your RPC propagation works properly, the match function will get canceled, and then if you're stuck querying for large pool tickets or whatever, that will in turn get canceled, and etc. So hopefully that will help in situations where things are going bad. It does also mean that it makes sense to now return matches as soon as you have them, instead of like building up a list of matches and then in a one function call, and then in a different, like the wrapper of it, like returning them, just because those functions will get or that those matches have better chance of actually making it through the window and everything. in a case where your system's overloaded. Okay.
If I can interrupt for 1 second.
Yeah,
so we
sure.
covered a lot just now, but it sounds like there's a couple API changes moving towards .9.
Yes.
Namely, the removal of the bulk fetch matches to singular fetch matches, which has some implications on the way people write directors.
Yeah.
There is the change of the logic service name to the query service, which makes a little bit more sense, but people have to make an adjustment in their kind of deployments and DNS discovery. There's the new addition of the paradigm for streaming optimistic matches back from a match function as opposed to doing a bulk kind of return. So there's an option there. I might be missing one, but the opportunity to like ask questions about those specific, maybe the motivations why those work the way they did, or any questions or concerns about taking a dependency on .9 or concerns in general from folks in the room.
Yeah. That's the bulk of it from 0.9. The last I have stuff is the scale testing results. So this is a good time to pause and answer any questions or comments or concerns. Anyone?
So first of all, 6 thumbs up on the whole not waiting for all the matchmakers to finish anymore, the matchmaking function. That's awesome. So I have a question about the new synchronizer. So you said it doesn't wait to stream, like it streams all the matches from the functions to the synchronizer, and then, you said that the evaluator doesn't wait for all the matchmaking functions to finish. It like streams them and does it in pieces. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. Well, we have a little bit of the change left to do, so it's not quite fully thrown through, but the bulk of it's done. The complicated bit's done. But by 0.9, what will happen is your match function could return a proposal for a match, and that will, go through the wire all the way to the evaluator without waiting on anything. So it doesn't get buffered anywhere. But so in your code with your evaluator, if you're just looping over receive and then adding it to a list, for example, and then sorting it and sending the ones that you want out or whatever, however your logic works, that logic is all still correct. What it's going to happen is instead of the evaluator getting called and then just getting a constant stream, the gRPC stream is going to be like less consistent or less constant, but it still won't say the stream is over until all the match functions have returned or the proposal window is closed. So your logic is still good there. It's just you might get a bunch of evaluation or proposals when one match function finishes while you're waiting for another one. So you can do any pre-processing you want as you're getting the matches, and then you'll get an end of file when it is time, when you're not going to get any more from the gRPC stream. And then you can do all your processing and return your results. Or if you want, hopefully by 0.9, you'll actually be able to return results as you get them. If you just want to say like the first match with the ticket gets wins, you could do that as well.
Perfect. Yeah, that works. I just wanted to make sure there was still like an EOF or something that gets sent. It's like, hey, we're done making matches now. So there's like a
yeah.
Okay. Cool. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. From an implementation for the evaluator standpoint, it should be a no op. Other than you probably want to do pre-processing as you're getting matches, or as you're getting matches if you have any pre-processing to do.
Yeah, this is pretty cool because one of the things we do a lot is we have all these match functions go out and run 1, 10, 100, 1,000. And when they're done, they submit like a large list of matches that we then try to aggregate into one process. And once they're all there, we do like one thing that we do a lot is we do like a sort on like the whole thing. Whereas if we had that stream of them coming in slowly as things completed, or even as they're optimistically kind of proposed, doing like normal insertion sort there, and then just like not even doing the final sort is much more performant for us. So that's one thing that's pretty nice.
Yeah, you can do sorting. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said we have a very similar process. Yeah, where we do a giant report after we get everything. So we do that as we go. It just makes more sense. But one thing you had asked about earlier, like, do you add any like properties to matches in the evaluator? We don't anymore, but a while back I had an iteration where instead of generating the quality or like what we use to sort and like choose the best game sort of thing, inside the matchmaking function, I actually did that in the evaluator, where like the matchmaking functions don't have to know like how good a game is, and the evaluator actually did that logic, and then we added that to the properties there. But I've since moved that into the matchmaking functions now, just so the evaluator doesn't have to do that for 100,000 matches or whatever gets generated. But that might be something someone wants to do. I don't know. Just, you know.
Yeah, question about that. It's your evaluation of the match was purely on data within the match, right? Like there wasn't any yeah. So I think that kind of processing we want to happen in the match function anyways, just because like you're saying, the evaluator has to see the whole world and process the whole world. Why is it doing something that the match function can do if it's only seeing part of the world?
Right. And that was like why I ended up moving it out. But there was a time where it's like, well, what if the matchmaking functions don't want to have to care about, or maybe like the evaluator can see all of the matches, and maybe there's some comparison that happens as like some percentage of like certain like things about all of the matches at once coming from multiple matchmakers. You could do some interesting things about, like, well, this is actually a better match because we have a low population on this playlist or something like that. But you don't know that within the actual matchmaking function. You only see that when you see the whole world inside the evaluator.
Right.
But like I said, we've moved away from it, so we're not using it like just as a possible thing that someone could use, just as maybe a use case. But anyway.
Yeah, we've thought about that, and we think generally you want to stick with the match function doing the processing. But if someone thinks case otherwise,
yeah, the evaluator was like super powerful kind of before. If there was a way to use the match extension and just have a specific extension for the evaluator, that would probably that's like a future improvement type thing, as opposed to kind of degrouping the evaluator. We could kind of add that little targeted thing back that enables that type of thing if someone really wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Cool.
Okay. So any other questions about 0.9, or should I move on to the scale tests? I'll take that as and move on to the scale tests. There we go. Okay. So unfortunately, these scale tests aren't quite to where I wanted them to be. We've been dealing with holidays, and oh no, so much time off work. I'm out of office and that kind of stuff. But what we have is it's kind of a bunch of code here. I can just bring up, whatever. Code to have a backend that is fetching matches and giving assignments. And what we're doing in the numbers I have here is just immediately deleting. So nothing's waiting on assignment. We are doing that because we know we haven't optimized that yet. And we wanted to get a view into what we haven't optimized yet, or what we believe we've more optimized. And then there's also a front end, which is just creating tickets in a loop at a constant QPS. And then how we've been doing the scale tests is we just scale up the number of the front ends running, and that multiplies by how many tickets they create a second is how many tickets you're going to get in the system total per second. And those are the scenarios we're getting. So I can show here in Grafana these are some of or kind of the view we're getting out of these scale tests. This is a first match type scale test. Like we have a first match example demo where the tickets don't have any properties. There's one match function. It gets all of the tickets and it pairs them up into 1v1 matches and returns them. And the evaluator is just like, yeah, just return the tickets that I've got. And unfortunately, I forgot to record the one where I scaled it up. I believe I got to about, what was it, like 2,400 tickets per second before it started falling over in some ways for this example. And then for a the next one was kind of a battle royale type scenario where there's 20 regions, players pick a region with some skewed probability. And once there's 100 players in that region, you have a match so they can throw them out. So if we go to that one here, what did I get? So we handled about 1K tickets per second just fine. At 2K tickets per second, see here, it worked for a little while, but then it struggled. But at 1K tickets, it was totally fine. And then we can see here the matches being made, the errors when we were struggling, and kind of like ticket deletion and stuff. And I'll share these graphs out afterwards, I think. And then our last kind of scenario is something that I would say is more indicative of kind of a classical session-based skill game where you have a bunch of regions. You can be matching for potentially multiple regions at a time. So in this case, there's 5 regions, match up to 3 of them. You're trying to, you pick a mode with some skewed probability, you're playing in those modes, and there's 12 players per game. You have a skill based on normal distribution, and you're saying for the 12 players in the match, the maximum difference in skill can be 0.05. So this is trying to get a more realistic scenario where there's a lot of tickets that kind of stick around because you don't get rid of all the tickets every iteration because you don't find good matches for everyone. And we're at like 500 tickets per second, I think. Yeah, and then we kind of had some problems. And this had a steady state of around 7,000 tickets in the queue at any given time. And yeah, we can see there's some problems. Sorry, any questions or comments so far, or is this useful?
This is pretty nice. I'd be curious to hear, did you do any root causing? So, we're discussing scale. So we're talking right now, I think we're talking front end throughput for particular scenarios.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
and like, sorry, I can go back to,
Sure.
1 second. This one here, we're looking at front end throughput, but we're also looking at the how many iterations of fetch matches you can make per second. And we kind of have the goal here of 1 per second. So if we actually go back to this one, you can see
when you say an iteration of fetch match, so we've scheduled one function run?
An iteration of fetch matches is scheduling all of the profiles to run their functions.
Okay.
So for the Battle Royale one, that's 20 because we're running 1 profile per region. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. And send all the fetch matches out, get them all back, and send the matches off for assigning and deleting. It doesn't block on assigning and deleting, but it does. It does if it fills up the queue too much. So there's a queue of a channel with a buffer, So once that fills up with like I can't assign quickly enough, then the fetch matches iterations will go down as well. So either fetch matches is slow or assigning and deleting is too slow to keep up with the matches we're getting back.
So where your cursor currently is.
Yes.
Okay, we moved it off to the side there, but it was on the graph. So for fetch match iterations, I'm just trying to figure out how to read this chart a little bit. It says iterations per second. So we schedule 20 profiles, and it looks like they finish in under a second, if I'm reading that correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they start taking longer to run those 20.
So actually, higher is better here.
Higher is better. Okay, so the legend is correct. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So this is, I was able to do 3 iterations per second on average over 5 minutes. Fortunately, I think one of these, this graph is broken. It's supposed to be how many tickets are in the matches, but it's just how many matches there were. See here, like this is how many matches we made that came back out of fetch matches.
Okay, per second, got it.
Yeah, per second. Averaged over 5 minutes because that's what Grafana and Prometheus do.
And so just grounding these numbers a little bit, I see there is like a 60 matches per second line, which is a interesting number. It's not that it's short, but I am curious to hear, in this particular case, what was the bottleneck that someone who's working with OpenMatch would need to try to understand better?
Okay, so this is where I wish we had better things to come to community meeting with. Just because we're just getting this information and we're just getting the scale test to, like, we've been iterating on trying to have it give us good data as well. And actually, let me switch over to, I think, hold on, is it this one was a better behaved one, I think. So this is the battle royale scenario. And I guess it was about 20 matches, but that's, each of those has 100 players in them. So 2K tickets per second. So to answer your question of what is the bottleneck here, where it seems to fall over at the moment is there might be a memory leak either in like somewhere in the gRPC layer, I think, or one of our wrappers we have on it, or I'm just really bad at estimating how the memory usage. But it seems to be that the match functions are out of memory. So they're blowing up too much memory, out of memory, crashing. And our current client-side load balancing then continues trying to access those functions and then fails because they're down. So there's 2 immediate things I think we want to solve really quickly, which is figure out why they're out of memory, either give them more memory because they just need more memory, or if there's a memory leak somewhere, fix it. And then the other one is we're looking at using Envoy currently, or UFEN is, so that the load balancing within the cluster is aware of what is live and healthy at the moment, so that if a pod goes down and then gets rebooted by Kubernetes, the traffic gets redirected there right away. And hopefully that will prevent behavior like this where things get unhealthy and they kind of stay unhealthy for a little while until finally the client load balancer goes, wait, the IP address of this changed. Okay, its DNS cache has expired and has come back and figured it out.
Gotcha. So as a user of OpenMatch, one of the things I'm looking out for is one that, watch for the memory on the match functions just to be aware of them, especially if I'm doing production load. And then also, it sounds like in spite of having some like pod losses and pod lossiness around that, it seems to keep ticking, and that's something we've seen as well. So yeah, that's good to see. Great.
We're adding more like dashboard for production usage, like the memory usage, CPU usage, like the Redis memory usage, and like process, like the total CPU load in average 10 seconds. and this metrics to to our Grafana dashboard as we're moving to production ready.
Mhm.
So I think this will be really helpful. Like it'll be ready in 0.9.
I will say actually the other bottleneck I did encounter was with I think it was the first match scenario. The bottleneck it was hitting was actually Redis being slow, and the not the fetch matches, but the assigning and deleting match tickets started being the bottleneck there. So then the last one here is another of the like skill-based with regions and game modes type 1, but that had fewer profiles running. So it's just splitting up the tickets less. And this one, trying to remember, I set it to 1.5K, and it was creating tickets a little bit slowly, which says that maybe Redis is getting bottlenecks a little bit, and tried to increase it beyond that, and it kind of it fell over. So you can see that this is the error line for assigning matches. So if you just have a few profiles or like less than 10, you should be able to make it over 10,000 tickets per second, which is a pretty decently sized game. Let me switch back to this one. And even at 100 tickets per second, the steady state of this iteration was around 17,000 tickets in the pool at any given time. So this is testing it with a decent sized pool as well. And then I tried adding a mode for assigning or waiting for our assignments from the front end and then deleting from there. Unfortunately, there's something going wrong with that scenario at the moment under load that I just haven't had time to really look at yet. So we'll be looking at that too. So any questions? Otherwise, final note here, which is I've written also in the 0.9 time frame, but it won't make it into 0.9. A prototype replacement of Redis with what is essentially a pod that has a lock around a hash map and a gRPC interface to it. But it's more complicated than that, but it's a kind of custom implementation replacement of Redis to try to get all of the concerns we want. We're going to discuss as a TSC probably later how we want to go forward with Redis and this. And once the scale numbers are a little more polished and we've fixed any memory leakage issues and all of that, we can look at the actual state. And this one, I was able to get with the Battle Royale scenario, like a really steady 2,000 tickets per second. I raised it to 60 and it fell over with the memory issues. So and like the iteration time was really high on this as well. And like there were some errors, but so there's some hope here of even if we're hitting some Redis bottlenecks with these numbers and these numbers don't look big enough, we are trying to make them bigger. I think our ideal scenario is if we could handle a fortnight, we can probably handle anything. For 0.9, we probably won't be able to handle anything. We'll probably be able to handle a lot. And I think the biggest concern right now is scaling out the number of profiles. So if you have a lot of complex logic in your match function and you really want to shard your player base, OpenMatch seems to struggle a little bit there at the moment. But now that we have these numbers and we can iterate on them and we can more easily say, I want to run a test with, 1,000 profiles with these characteristics. We'll be able to get better iteration and root cause analysis and all of that on these, hopefully. So that is what I had on Scale. Any questions? Hopefully this looks good-ish, but yeah.
Quick question as far as scaling of profiles with the new memory hash map version of Redis prototype. Do you have a goal for like number of profiles you'd like to be able to support?
As many as possible.
Fair enough.
Um,
I just didn't know if you had like a target, like 1,000 profiles, 10,000 profiles, or you'll figure it out, see what it can handle when you get there.
It's more of the second.
Okay.
So our prototype of Act is just replacing Redis altogether. Hopefully we'll scale out to so the problem that we definitely analyzed is that when you scale out the number of queries against Redis for the range queries, and there's overlap in the range queries, you start really slowing down just because of Redis's single-threaded nature. And we're looking at also doing some read-only replicas of Redis and using those, but there might be some consistency issues there. This prototype handles the consistency issues, but also does full sharding of the reads and querying, and hopefully does it in also a more efficient way. So the hope is that you'll be able to scale this out to whatever you reasonably need to, but we haven't started chipping away at the low-hanging fruit yet. So yeah, I don't know. I think if it's not, if we're not getting at least 100, I think we're having a problem. I don't know. I think as a team we'll discuss where we want to go from there. Where we're going to prioritize making profiles expand out versus having other problems or tackling other issues or ecosystem or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it seems like we're kind of at a point with OpenMatch where how large you scale profiles is kind of we're butting up against some interesting realities, which is our database technology that we started with is not particularly good at this type of use case where you have tens of thousands of things doing ranges. There are better database technologies, like, for example, I've mentioned like Elasticsearch is like a high search, really robust way of doing search, but you pay for it in like indexing time. And so that's going to slow down your total time to match make. Being able to make that trade-off and that decision is something that we're trying to figure out, one, how to prioritize it. So, if anyone from the community has really good solutions for this, we'd love to have some help with that. Because in the meantime, we're kind of we're trying to figure out how to get the most profiles possible, but also provide a pattern that's going to be particularly good for most use cases. And the scaling to tens of thousands of profiles thing has been a really interesting problem in OpenMatch. And why someone's doing that is also an interesting conversation. But I would love to have a deeper conversation about just high profile throughput. I think that'd be a really, really interesting discussion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I've explained before, but for us, I've recently changed the idea of a backfill profile and a backfill server being a ticket rather than a profile.
Right.
But, when we have at production scale, when we have 2 to 10,000 backfill servers at any given time, turn them into profiles, and I've got 10,000 plus, new games. So I've got, easily 10,000 profiles. So, if we could do it with profiles, it would be just cleaner because now you don't have these special weird fancy tickets. But yeah, that's our use case at least.
You have that many backfills all at once?
Sure.
Wow. Okay. So a lot of games with missing players.
Yeah, well, because it's, you jump into a game, you play, or whatever, leave, and it's just kind of a normal part of our cycle.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it also depends on the way. One thing we want to achieve with Open Match is like we don't really like Open Match shouldn't necessarily care how your servers work and like how they do backfill, or like their life cycle isn't assumed by Open Match.
Mhm.
Whether you allocate based on the presence of players or you just have paid for machines and the machines are sifting through the player pool using Open Match to try and pull players in. Yeah, running one profile per backfill. If there were a way to abstract that or make that a first class concept in Open Match where it didn't actually translate to one-to-one compute with the thing that the backfill server is trying to do, might be worth kind of prioritizing and pursuing. Because I don't think your use case is the only one. I think there's a ton of it's almost intuitive, just be like, run this function for my backfill. That it just rails the database. So we got to figure out maybe a way to batch them or schedule them so that they all run on one profile, or it looks like one profile. Interesting takeaway though. We'll go and think about that some more.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of use in having like a generic backfill, because like in the center of your bell curve for any given playlist, you've probably got, maybe 100 games all querying the exact same data for, these players in this playlist right in the center of your bell curve. So
right.
I think if you could group that in some way, but anyway.
The way, we've mentioned backfill tickets, and maybe it's worth bringing up in this community meeting, but one of the things that we've really encountered, and now the way we're using Open Match is we're really favoring backfill tickets as a strategy, and it comes with a lot of benefits. So for anyone else who's curious, you can do backfill where you say, hey, run this profile, and basically execute a custom piece of logic that's going to return one match, and that match is going to contain players that you need to backfill, and then you need to do it again and again and again. With a ticket, you can send the request through once, and what's nice about the ticket with connection information, so a backfill, is you can have lots of different profiles consume that ticket and like decide for the ticket what its needs are. And so you take some of the power away from the thing calling backfill, the server, but you could also have lots of different profile concerns, try to figure out what to do with the backfill. The really interesting thing that we kind of have been trying to figure out is, hey, what if every match function kind of started with a pool of existing games? And so, hey, I've got 3 games. I'm going to try to fill those. And then with the rest of the players that I've queried for, I'm going to make new games. There's some other challenges there, but for general discussion, that if anyone else has ideas about how to do backfill, we'd love to hear them. Future discussions.
Yes. I will say from the profiles, scaling up the number of profiles point of view, there definitely are some like low-hanging fruits in the scale testing that's not just Redis that we're hitting. So once we figure out what's going on there and we fix that, if like the number of profiles might just shoot up, as like the number of profiles that work might just shoot up, and that's kind of the hope. We'll see once we get there. I probably not wait until the next community meeting if we have numbers that look good to share before then. Cool.
I guess a general question to the room. We see updates go out on the users channel and the development channel. Have folks found those to be useful? Is there new things you'd like to see that are kind of broadcasted? For the most part, development kind of happens on GitHub and then kind of releases get announced. But anything else that's missing you guys would like to see? Well, if you come up with any suggestions, feel free to throw them up on the channel. That seems to be the best way to get in touch with people.
Yeah.
I had one that I think I brought up a month or 2 ago, and honestly, I haven't actually paid attention if you guys were working on it or not, which was the ability to clear all tickets. Like if, for instance, like if the director crashes or if you upgrade to a new version of the director and you don't have any linkage anymore. You don't know what's in the queue.
Right.
To be able to like clear it and start fresh. Is that somewhere?
So that's an item we have a note on to do. Like it's an issue on GitHub.
Okay. That's good. I just make sure it was like on the radar somewhere.
I think it might have been you, Robert, who posted a code snippet that will do this.
Yeah.
So it just queries all the tickets and then runs delete over them. Unfortunately, there's that only will get tickets that are kind of live in the pool at the moment. So I think looking forward, we might want to add some other APIs that, like, when you're clearing tickets of going like, no, I actually want everybody, even if they're already assigned, for example. That isn't in there yet. We haven't figured that out for 0.9, and I think it's a little bit late to get that in for 0.9 and figure it out. It's definitely something we know you need to do occasionally. I don't know if we want it to be an API endpoint because that's a very scary API endpoint to have. Maybe we do. If you guys have opinions about it should be an API endpoint, even if it's scary, let us know. Maybe we'll add it, or we can discuss it, or whatever thoughts are.
Yeah, the idea of having administrative capabilities or an administrative API with different type of like lock-in credentials and no service exposing it is also a way we could pursue something like that. I have a feeling that'll be, especially with evaluation, just trying to figure out how to use the system, kind of consuming it all from the front-end APIs can be pretty cumbersome.
And another area I thought about a little bit is we might want to add like a command line tool for interacting with OpenMatch, which has some common utilities of like get a ticket with this ID, list tickets with those parameters, or delete tickets with a yes, I'm really sure I want to delete tickets, confirmation type thing. And would that solve your problems, or are you wanting something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think the major use case is this is specific to our use case, right? But it's basically that the only thing that calls the front end API or the back end API for that matter is the director. There's no like outside interaction, and so it's like for some reason something catastrophic, the director fails and it crashes, and we boot up a new one, but we don't know what the Redis state is anymore because the director doesn't query, right? It's just so we're just like I don't know, just like nuke everything and we'll pull down fresh and see from there.
So you do actually have a use case for not a developer doing it, but a system doing it.
Yeah, it's like on restart or on like something bad happened, just like kill it, start over. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It definitely sounds more. It's an admin-y thing. It's not a.
Yeah. That sounds tricky. Interesting. So, it's not prioritized for 0.9, but maybe for 0.10. I was also going to note. We discussed a little bit in TSC, and our current plan is for new APIs that are added and new configuration options or whatever. We're gonna in the 0.10 timeframe probably develop a beta model, which will be like this feature's beta. It has no backwards compatibility guarantees. You probably have to flip a flag in the configuration to enable it. And because once we're post 1.0, we're gonna want to add stuff that we're not 100% confident in, and to get feedback and iterate on it. So this is if we add this, or when we add this, it'll probably be first added as a beta feature, and then if after a couple of releases we're like, yeah, this is working for everybody, it just makes sense, we can flip it over and say like, okay, now it's a full-fledged feature. You don't have to flip on a flag to get it. It's just available. We've locked down the API on it. So, yeah.
Before we wrap for this month, I just wanted to put John on the spot and say, is there anyone new to the meeting that would like to say hello?
I like your glasses, April.
Well, thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Faust. I'm a developer advocate here at Google. I am jumping on board to help out with OpenMatch. I think I've met a couple of folks here, and I know I've met Caleb before at GDC. But yeah, I'm really excited to be on board, and I'll be a lot more involved in the community. So hopefully, I get to interact with you a bunch of you a lot more, and hopefully, I can help out with any of the needs that we're looking for, to make OpenMatch a success.
Cool.
Great. Welcome on board, John.
Everyone meet John.
I'm also new. First time I've been on this call. I'm working on a project called RealFit, which is a VR exercise application, and I've been looking at using OpenMatch and for coordinating group workouts for people.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I kind of got it basically working with 0.8, and the changes for 0.9 all sound pretty recent to me. Nothing sounds too scary there. But yeah, it's all looking good to me. Thanks.
Very cool. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, welcome.
Anybody else want to share anything generally before we call it for this month? Thank you, Scott and Caleb, for leading our discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to end with that as well. As like, if anyone else has any comments or concerns or ideas. Anything.
The user channel and the development channel, it'd be really cool to see. We're going to take more of conversations onto those. So things like what we talked about today about like the database, we'll try to have those in those channels so that everyone in, or if you have experience like that, feel free to you don't have to necessarily make the PR. PRs are welcome, but you can help us make the PRs if that makes sense. Mark's famous PRs are welcome.
Yeah, I joke that I'm going to put that in my email signature. Just PRs. PRs are welcome for everything. Is anybody playing anything cool that they want to share with everyone else? I've been spending way too much time on Destiny.
Okay, it's been a while since I logged in.
I got the lovely Comcast message of like, you've exceeded your data limit this month. So yeah, Destiny on Stadia. Yep.
I did get a screenshot from one of my closest friends who's like, "Oh, I played with one of the developers tonight," and sent me the screenshot, and it was ish.
Oh.
I haven't sent that over to you, but yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
I've ended up on Reddit a couple times. It's kind of funny.
Sure.
It's usually me losing like 18-0.
I don't know. You had a champion status on there, so that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, it helps when I get to play at my lunch breaks. So
yeah.
Get a lot of extra hours in.
Yeah.
It's work research. That's
exactly. Yeah, it's very important.
It's all
Totally.
playtesting.
Totally. Yep. Is everybody going to GDC or planning to go?
Oh, yes.
Sweet. Well, we'll plan something around then.
Yeah. Once we get closer, we'll have to do that. Yeah.
Is there going to be the backend services meetup again?
I don't know, Mark. You going to do that again?
That's a good question. So there is the summit on Monday. So the Online Games Technology Summit, which you can actually see the program for at GDC. I don't think we have a plan as of yet to do a meetup, but we probably should organize something.
Add that to my list.
Probably like the Monday night would actually make a certain amount of sense.
So to consider thoughts, not everybody's going to have a pass to go to those talks. And the people who don't will probably be in town the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Why aren't you coming?
No. I'm not
peer
saying
pressure. Why is everyone not coming?
the,
Mark put on this whole summit. I mean,
the full pass is rather expensive. So, just as something people do is, do more of the expo or just do the nights. So food for thought. I don't know.
Yeah, no, good point. I do think that, we'll look and see Google is obviously a sponsor. I think I just got an email. I assume Unity.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
there's
between the
a
two
million
of us,
parties.
I feel
going
like we should have some space somewhere that we could use. And then we can do something a little more informal, like you said, Scott. If nothing else, I'll just start booking a bunch of random restaurants around Moscone and whatever we
Basically what we
use.
did last time. No, I'm just thinking like Monday is both the Google Cloud Day. It's also like the Online Games Technology Summit. So everyone who's working on like that kind of stuff, they're just going to be there. So, and I don't think it overlaps with like some of the other stuff we sponsor or our party or other stuff that way too, as well. So Monday might just be the best day, even if not everyone can make it.
Yeah.
By the end of the week, you'll be sick of us all, Scott. So don't worry, it'll be fine.
Yeah. And I guess the people here or just in general watching online on later YouTubes, if you want to get in contact with us and like just have us sit down one-on-one or a few in at GDC, just let us know. And if you're just looking at evaluating Open Match even or talking about your ideas or whatever, we'll probably have a bunch of time to do that. So.
Yeah, and I'll keep everybody posted too. For if you were there last year, we had the open source and gaming kind of roundtable, and there is plans to do that again this year with a little more structured content. So I'll send that out when we get it officially confirmed. So
for next month's community meeting to discuss more.
Yes, we will add that for next time. Yes.
Cool.
All right.
We're at time, so.
Yep.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.